Hello, my friend, and welcome to Something for Everybody. My name is Aaron Mashpitz, and today is a solo episode of the podcast where I'm discussing procrastination. Specifically, we are going to learn how to never procrastinate again. Because most of us, if not all of us, have faced procrastination. The very thought of making that first step feels or felt impossible. This probably wasn't due to a lack of motivation. Maybe you were really motivated, but still, for some reason, you delayed or you just couldn't get started. What I didn't understand then, or why we don't procrastinate, is there was a neurochemical civil war happening in my brain, in our brains, because every time we sit down to work, a tug of war erupts in our brain. One part, the approach system, which is driven by dopamine rich areas like the striatum, craves the reward of progress and pushes you towards action. But the other part, the avoidance system, is fueled by cortisol rich areas like the amygdala, which screams to avoid it. Because effort means energy drain, and your biology is evolved to conserve energy at all costs. So this isn't laziness. It's really not a lack of motivation either. It's high motivation plus inaction. And that contradiction is what makes procrastination so painful and what we need to avoid to start to never procrastinate again. Really, this is known as the approach avoidance conflict, commonly thought of as procrastination. But since we have this approach system and the avoidance system, which we just talked about, we now know the approach avoidance conflict is procrastination. So you want to start the project. You're excited to finish it. But the moment you try, you're pulled away, you're pulled into delay, you're pulled into distraction, into guilt. This is the approach avoidance conflict. This creates this cognitive tug of war, right? When you're away from your desk, writing that book seems, super exciting. But once you open your computer, you dread the blank page. And so how do you win this neurochemical war? Well, one, you have to understand the science of flow. Flow is the optimal state that a human being can be in. And for a decade, Stephen Kotler studied elite action adventure athletes to figure out flow. And he studied, big wave surfer Laird Hamilton to skater Tony Hawk. And Stephen discovered these athletes access flow states through a 4-phase cycle. 1 was struggle, 2 was release, 3 was flow, and 4 was recovery. Struggle was the effort right before the effortlessness of flow. It's the phase where resistance is high, emotions spike, and your brain wants to do anything else but the task at hand. But here's the thing Stephen noticed. These pros, these athletes, these adventure athletes had no trouble entering the struggle phase. They dive into like a freezing wave or jump out of a plane or scale rock faces with no rope, right? The hard part for them wasn't starting, it was surviving what came after. But for modern professionals, for most of us, it's the opposite. For us, there's a critical 5th phase that comes before struggle, and that phase is engage. Engage is the moment you decide to actually do the thing, because we know doing the thing is the most important thing, and action is the only thing that's going to move the needle forward. For athletes, this is relatively an easy part, right? It's a momentary decision. It just kind of happens. But for knowledge workers, for modern professionals, or students, it's where we get stuck, and it's where this, approach avoidance conflict comes in, right? We know that the engage portion is what stops us, or what the engage phase is what stops us and keeps us locked in procrastination, or keeps us locked in this approach avoidance conflict. We fail to engage the struggle phase that allows us to get into flow in the first place. So here's 4 steps how to master the ability to engage and make procrastination impossible. Number 1, create laser attention with ridiculously clear goals or targets. Original flow research discovered clear goals as a primary flow trigger. These aren't outcome goals, which could be like win the soccer match, but attention targets like get the ball in the net. Clear goals or clear targets activate your central executive network for planning and trigger dopamine surges that help overcome the approach avoidance conflict. The problem is most modern professionals or knowledge workers, they're just, or students, like our goals just aren't clear enough. Our targets aren't clear enough because we know that our direction is way more important than our speed. We have to know what direction we're going in, and that's because of our clear targets or our clear goals. The key is to break tasks into micro goals that take seconds to complete. This melts resistance, right? For example, write the intro to the presentation, add past client data, design graphics with brand colors. And then when procrastinating, answer these specific questions. What specifically am I trying to achieve? What steps are involved? In what order should I execute these steps? What is the first step to the first step? Be absurdly specific. The first step might be, open a Word document, title the document, and save it in the right folder. You actually haven't done anything, but you've done the first step to the first step, and that might be enough engagement to get past the struggle phase to get you into flow. But you have to be absurdly specific because we know clear targets and clear goals are a flow trigger, and we know that direction is more important than our speed. So if we want to avoid this avoidance approach conflict, or we want to get past procrastination, we have to create laser attention with ridiculously clear goals or targets. That's number one. And then we go into number two, tune the challenge skill balance. This flow trigger refers to the relationship between a task's perceived challenge and your perceived skill, right? If it's too challenging, then we get anxious and anxiety just becomes way too overwhelming. If it's too easy, we get bored. We know that having anxiety is not a bad thing, right? Anxiety, stress, nerves, they can be fueled as an enhancing mindset, right? I'm excited. I'm using this energy to go perform my best. But if it's too challenging, let's say like a youth baseball player gets thrown into a Major League Baseball game. That's too challenging, so overwhelming. The anxiety is not enhancing anything. He's just outmatched completely because he doesn't have the prerequisite skills to handle what's going on. But if we have a junior varsity athlete who's getting a chance on varsity, yes, that might be perfect. That might be just the right amount of challenge and just the right amount of anxiety to say, this is enhancing. I'm using this energy to go out there and perform my best. But if it's too easy, then we get bored. We also know that boredom potentially could be the pathway to creativity. So boredom is not a bad thing. Boredom is actually a really, really good thing, and it's a superpower. But when we're trying to get into flow, using this challenge skill balance, we want to find that sweet spot between challenge and skill. And the sweet spot is when a task is about 4% more challenging than your current skill level. To tune this balance, you have to lower the hurdle. This works because procrastination is ultimately about avoiding energy expenditure. If you lower the hurdle so you can step over it rather than trying to jump it. So you make the first step so easy, it takes no effort at all, then just start. Don't wait to feel like it. This is tuning the challenge skill balance and has a ton of relationship to the idea of making your habits too small to fail, right? Making your habits too small to fail is about lowering the hurdle. So making that first step takes no effort at all. You can get it done. The baseline is right there. Then you step into the action. Then you do the action. And then boom, 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 boom. Then you keep going from there, building, stacking those wins over and over and over again. This is about how you make habits stick, making them too small to fail. And this is also centering around tuning the challenge skill balance so you can never procrastinate again. And then we move to number 3, which is use response inhibition. Response inhibition is the ability to override automatic reactions. When the emotional brain takes over, it blocks our ability to self-regulate or to have self-regulation. So some people have trained themselves to immediately dial, like a salesperson, right? Has trained themselves to immediately dial before they could think about it. And then that person would say hello before any anxiety could kick in. Athletes also have trained themselves to immediately get to work regardless if they feel like it or not. Discipline and Jocko Willink, right? Doing what needs to be done regardless of how you feel. This is response inhibition. It's the ability to train yourself to override these automatic reactions. And one way to help with this is to wake up and flow. Wake up and flow, because morning delta and theta brain waves are naturally close to the alpha and theta waves found in flow. Alpha waves reduce prefrontal cortex activity, creating effortlessness. Theta waves boost creativity. To take advantage of this, get to work within 90 seconds of waking up, have everything prepared the night before. This bypasses the emotional brain and activates your prefrontal cortex before the approach avoidance conflict can even begin. Right? There's so much information online about our morning routine. And I was really into, I've talked about it on many, many podcasts before, my extensive morning routine that I had about 2 or 3 years ago. And that really helped me dial in how I wanted to set up my day and how I wanted to feel and getting into deep work. But as I learned more about this wake and flow and bypassing this approach avoidance conflict so I wouldn't get procrastinated and getting into deep work and getting into flow early in the day and using a work bout so I can go as deep as possible on the most important tasks, I've switched up the way I run my morning routine. Within about the first 2 minutes of waking up, I'm sitting down at my desk to work. The only thing I do when I wake up is I brush my teeth, I drink some water, and then I get right to work. And I've already identified my most essential task the night before. So when I sit down, it's boom, it's right there, we're knocking it out. Then most of the time I get into flow and I just work and work and work until I'm out of flow. It's usually about 90 minutes, maybe a little bit longer. That's the kind of the deep work sweet spot right there is about 90 minutes. And then once that's done, then I get into my morning routine a little bit. Then I eat, then I either do another deep work block, or then I go to the gym. And so then after that, my morning routine consists of some of the stuff that I used to do more extensively, but just in a shortened version that really helps me. I read a little bit, some passages in a book, right, to get my mind right, learning something, engaging in something. Then I journal about maybe my day or my thoughts, my gratitude, my optimism. Then I pray, then I meditate, then I deep breathe, and then boom, then I'm good for my day. But the 90 minutes of just waking up in flow has been really powerful for me. Then I get into my morning routine habits. Then maybe I do something else. I have the luxury of not having to be at a specific place at a specific time. And I'm sure this will all get totally messed up when my child comes into the world, when my son is born in September. So I'll let you know how I tweak that stuff based on, his schedule and when we have to do for him, especially early on in his life when maybe he's not sleeping through the night. But as of right now, that's what I do. And it's really helped me get right into flow. And it's really helped me avoid the approach avoidance conflict or just move past procrastination. And I really encourage you to try and do it if you have the ability to do so in your life. And so that's response inhibition. That was number 3. And then we move to number 4, which is ensure a struggle payoff. Flow feels incredible. Again, it's the optimal state that a human being can be in. But to justify the struggle of starting, you need a high likelihood of a sustained flow. That's why work and flow for about 90 minutes for that deep work block is amazing. So think surfing, for example. Would you bother waxing your board and paddling out if you knew the ocean would go flat after one wave? No, probably not. You wouldn't engage in that struggle if that was the case, right? We know that those are the 2 first phases of getting into flow. This is why, the Swiss cheese, schedule kills productivity. With meetings scattered throughout your day, you never have enough time of uninterrupted time to struggle through to even get to flow because you have so many different things. Your task switching, your attentional residue is everywhere. You just can't get deep on something because it's never been easier to get ahead. It's also never been easier to get distracted. And one of the ways we can get ahead is by actually going deep on our work, not this shallow, task switching type work that's not getting anything done. It just seems like we're busy doing stuff, but we're not really going deep on the most important task. We're not moving the needle forward. We're just doing stuff. But you have to do the right things moving forward. And so to get into that flow stage, you have to engage, you have to struggle, and then flow actually happens. And so to ensure the struggle payoff, collapse unnecessary meetings, batch communications, outside of peak productive hours, bookend meetings at the beginning or end of your day, and protect long blocks for focused work. Those are the things that are really going to help you move past procrastination. And one last insight that I feel is very important in regards to this approach avoidance conflict or procrastination. Sometimes what feels like procrastination is actually ambivalence. Your intuition signaling that something just isn't right. If you listen carefully, it might save you from going all in on the wrong thing, right? Procrastination is, I know I need to do this, but I don't want to. Ambivalence is, I'm not sure I should do this at all. Understand that very clearly. We want to overcome procrastination, but we want to listen to ambivalence. Try not to confuse the two of them. Again, to reiterate, procrastination is, I know I need to do this, but I don't want to. Ambivalence is, I'm not sure I should do this at all. So when the goal is right, the target is clear, and the task does matter, you need to know how to engage. You have to know how to engage, because until you do, flow stays out of reach, and so does your best work, and you will keep continually over and over again, procrastination. You will keep avoiding and having this approach, avoidance, conflict in your brain, but you need to know how to engage. That's step number one of this flow cycle, because until you do, flow stays out of reach, and so does your best work. So these 4 steps will help you never procrastinate again. And to reiterate, what are the steps? Step number 1 is create laser attention with ridiculously clear goals or targets. Step number 2 is tune that challenge, skill, balance. Step number 3 is use response inhibition. And step number 4 is to ensure a struggle payoff. Again, you need to know how to engage, because until you do, flow stays out of reach, and so does your absolute best work, and you becoming that best version of yourself in greatest service to the world. So those 4 steps will help you never procrastinate again. Let me know what you think and how it might have helped you, and maybe we can go deeper on certain ones to really understand the science behind flow, because it's a beautiful thing. I urge you to go check out Stephen Kotler and the Flow Research Collective for more deeper information on flow. That's where I learned all of this stuff about flow and procrastination and the wake up in flow and all these types of things I find very interesting and want to share with you guys. So if you found this episode valuable at all, please share it with a friend, share with every friend that you know. That's the best marketing tool that we have for this podcast. But I appreciate you very much. I appreciate you tuning in, and thank you, and I'll see you next time. Lots of love. Cheers. Thank you very much for tuning into that episode. And if you enjoyed it, click right here for another full-length episode of the podcast. And please don't forget to subscribe. But most importantly, above all else, please take good care of yourselves and others. And I'll see you next time. Lots of love. Cheers.